Hello, thank you for joining me today. I'm Jan de Vis, Managing Director of Connect and Transform and Executive Professor at Flanders Business School. Most approaches in companies are based on a model of value creation, and the dominant model companies use today is trying to figure out for themselves how to create value and then selling it to stakeholders. And this model is changing. It is changing in the direction of co-creation and engagement in joint discovery and joint decision-making processes. The basic question is not only how we can move beyond meaningful conversations and develop real collaborative intelligence. During the last 25 years, we have seen a huge shift in how people collaborate. Although participation is widely integrated in collaborative practices, a lot of decision-making still happens in small circles of experts, managers, professionals, who see collaboration as a means of information gathering, not as a joint process of decision-making. And therefore engagement levels are often limited and no real collective intelligence is built. It's only recently that co-creation started to be seen as a source of value creation. And one sees this in all kinds of challenges where the old model of information gathering followed by expert decision making doesn't work anymore. Going from urban development, which was governed by master planners, developed by urban design offices, to industries which have discovered the benefits of platforms and social media, to voluntary associations looking how they can re-engage and involve their members in what the association can contribute for them. The basic idea in co-creation is that it takes place in the larger ecosystem in which stakeholders are actively engaged. This means that in order to develop the next generation of services, one has to build dialogues with stakeholders. Both those directly affected and those indirectly affected by the possibilities of new offerings. A challenge here is dealing with huge differences in capabilities of the stakeholders involved. A second basic building block is that the co-creational process becomes an integral part of a company's decision-making process. And this means that companies have to adapt their decision-making formats, which in turn influences how roles and accountabilities are designed. What is, for example, my accountability as a manager in joint decision-making? There are two other ingredients for successful co-creational activities. The first one is that we can only co-create around meaningful experiences of stakeholders. These can be related to how they experience products and services, but also to how they personally experience the value add of communities, of associations or initiatives taken by politicians. For example, one can only co-create new solutions around climate change when people really start to experience the effects of the changing climate. The second has to do with the quality of the interaction. The basic idea there is that people want to be engaged in meaningful, creative and transformative ways. What I observe here is that a lot of large group dialogic techniques finally find their way into collaborative processes. And it is still a high degree of exploration going on around which formats can help to build what kind of dialogues. One of my insights is that one cannot plan real co-creation in a linear way. Co-creation is a dynamic process in which each next step results from how the process unfolds and how experiences are shared. On the content level, one has the challenge to create conversations and storylines that take into account differences in uncertainties, in interpretation of goals, and in capabilities. On the process side, the challenge is to use a rich mix in process methodologies related to innovation, knowledge sharing, and group decision making. In creating these storylines, one needs to be very attentive that the human experience is framed through different lenses. Human experience is determined by the mindset and the complexity level through which issues are framed. And in this scheme, I make a distinction between 3 levels of complexity and 3 mindsets that are often related to those levels of complexity. There is a professional and technical level in which participants mainly focus on quality, service, and optimization and differentiation. This is often a lens used by experts. And the related mindset there is that there is a kind of a conviction that the core features of issues can be known to all actors. And there is a high degree of agreement amongst them that needs to be established. The relationships between actions and their consequences are known and predictable. It seems as if the world is a world of logic and sequential unfolding of activities. A second level of complexity is situated on a structural level, where participants can focus on end-to-end value streams and rethinking profitability. This is a domain which is more complicated than the first level. And participants are often in a mindset where they see that core features cannot necessarily be known by everyone, and that there is some disagreement about the nature of the situation and what needs to be done. For example, their theories of change are different, and the relationships between an action and their consequences can be known by bringing together relevant expertise, although all the participants know that you cannot fully predict the thing. A third level of complexity is played at the societal level. Participants can focus on purpose, on ecosystems, and on new modeling. This is the complex domain, where many features of a situation are unknown, and there is not only considerable disagreement about the nature of the situation and what needs to be done, but also about what's happening and why. The relationship between an action and its consequences is unknowable beforehand, depending considerably on the context of the issue. Now, these differences in complexity level and mindset create gaps between participants. And it's my point that collaborative intelligence will develop when one does not focus on closing the gap, but on minding the gap, by which I mean that you do not need to build, let's say, a same level of understanding with everybody. The image that I'm using is the image of the London Underground. The London Underground is not asking us to close the gap because we cannot. Also, the gap is necessary to maintain the structure between the train and the platform. So even when we could close it, it wouldn't be a right thing to do. The metaphorical gaps between the different mindsets and complexity levels do not need to be closed, but can be managed consciously through different forms of reflexivity at different levels, different kinds of experiments, and nesting accountabilities and allowing different levels of coherence. Returning to my opening slide, depending on the level of co-creation, different approaches and interaction platforms can be designed. And the success of developing collaborative intelligence is in the degree of alignment of interaction processes with the level of complexity and the mindsets of participants. The most known process is a linear one, which is great for professional and technical approaches, and where clubs of experts are involved. But on a societal level, however, there is the cake map approach, focusing on togetherness, on simultaneity, and shared experience. Co-creation is a very new domain, and I'm preparing a book on the issue, focusing on how to create collaborative intelligence at different levels in an organization and in society. And I would welcome all your thoughts and reflections on this presentation. Thank you for your attention.